Oh, here comes the gang that can't shoot straight, the Federal Reserve. How many people out there watch a movie and it almost annoys you because you know that there's a character in that movie or television show, whatever it may be, and you just know that they're going to screw crap up? You just know they're never going to do anything right. They're just going to make matters worse and screw things up. Well, that's pretty much my take on the Federal Reserve. And guess what? I challenge you right now to go back to a period of time where the Fed actually did the right thing. And I think you'd have to go all the way back to Paul Volcker. Paul Volcker and maybe Fed policy through the mid 1990s, in my opinion. Some say all the way up until 2000. But we'll you know what? For argument's sake, we'll say 2000. So basically, for the past quarter of a century almost, the Fed has been making matters worse. It's been making our lives more expensive. It has slowed economic growth and prosperity here in this country, and I'm tired of it. I can't stand no more. But again, not much that we can do. All right. I want to give kudos to presidential candidate, Republican, on the Republican side. He's running for the presidency. Honestly, the guy's a breath of fresh air. He's a breath of fresh air, and he scares the crap. He scares the crap out of the Republican pundits and the powers that be and the consultant class that's out there. Now, how do I know this? Well, guess what? I happen to do some media from time to time, and I'm on with certain consultants and Republican this and consult on this campaign, and I'm a part of this think tank. And again, they all think the same exact thing, say the same exact thing. Oh, he's great, but he can't win. There's no way he can win. Well, again, they want to saddle. They want to, hitch their wagon up to candidates with the most amount of money. That's just how they operate. That's how they feed their families. Again, I couldn't do it for a living, but, these people can. Anyway, Vivek, a bit of a breath of fresh air in regards to some of the comments and astute comments that he's making. And rather than running attack ads on Fox News on a regular basis, a la Trump, he's actually, he writes op-eds in the Wall Street Journal and other publications and appears on these networks to debate issues. Oh, no, not that. Not debate issues. Not talk common sense. No, we can't have that type of Socratic debate. We need inane, stupid nonsense with people making fun of one another. Anyway, I digress. Anyway, we're talking about the collapsed Silicon Valley Bank, Signature Bank, First Republic. Okay, why? Well, Federal Reserve held interest rates too low for too long, and they rose rates too quickly. Okay, that's not inaccurate. But again, if I was running one of those banks, it wouldn't happen. They wouldn't have collapsed because guess what? I don't deal in risk that leads to ruin. Just something I don't engage in. Anyway, Federal Reserve mandate, right? What we got to do? We got to keep inflation down. We got to keep inflation down, and you know what? We need full employment. That's the mandate, and this goes back to around 2000, where they put this into play, and the old Phillips curve. Yeah. Well, Vivek, and I'm going to quote him today in his piece. He said, "If I'm elected president, I will return the Fed to a narrower scope, preserving the U.S. dollar as a stable financial unit to help prevent financial crisis and restore robust economic growth." Again, I'd like to make this perfectly clear. We haven't had real robust economic growth for a long time. I mean, real robust economic growth. Again, it's since the 1990s. Since the 1990s. I know we've had some sugar highs. We had some sugar highs. We had the Fugazi run up in the housing market under Bush, but we haven't had real dynamic type growth for a very, very long time. Anyway, beginning of the 1980s, lasting through most of the 1990s. Again, that's my point. He says 2000, most of the 1990s. I think Alan Greenspan kind of, he would have, should have, could have. He should have dealt with margin requirements back in around 1995, 1996. That's what he did, his irrational exuberance speech, but he didn't follow through. But anyway, through that period of time, Fed governors, including Vice Chairman Manley Johnson and Wayne Angell, used a framework first adapted by Paul Volcker in 1982 to do what? Stabilize the U.S. dollar. The idea was to consider the dollar's value in terms of commodities, letting it serve as a reference point for other nations' floating fiat currencies. This provided financial stability for 2 decades following the stagflation of the 1970s. Again, this is a debate that I get into sometimes with some of the gold bugs that are out there talking about the gold standard and the need to be on gold. And I love gold. Why gold? Or why just gold? I mean, you want to make it a part of your commodity pool, but I would argue that there are other things in life that are a hell of a lot more valuable and necessary. Fossil fuels, oil, gas. I mean, there's a lot of things that are a hell of a lot more important than gold. And again, this is why I believe, too, you pay attention to commodities and your currency based upon relationship with these baskets of commodities. Anyway, beginning of the 1990s, late 1990s, the Fed's scope changed. It included, we got to fix it. Bob the Builder, Fed the Fixer. Yep, we got to fix it. We got to smooth out. Yeah, smooth out business cycles. No. What are business cycles? What are recessions? What are slowdowns? They're natural. They're okay. Get rid of the gunk. You're getting rid of the garbage. Bad companies go away. Good companies take a look and say, hey, how can we become more efficient? There's nothing wrong with business cycles. Fed's actions exacerbated business cycles by creating transitions that create boom-bust cycles instead. Is he wrong? Is he wrong? No, he's spot on. The Fed now typically tightens when an economic slowdown is impending, engineering a downturn of liquidity that catalyzes a profit downturn, leading to a credit cycle downturn in which credit events, bankruptcies, credit spreads, and financial institution failures prompt all sorts of cries for bailouts. Pattern in 2000, 2008, and here we are again in 2023. In 2000, the Fed issued 6 consecutive rate hikes from June 1999 to March of 2000. Meantime, the dollar's real value was rising, indicating deflationary pressure, suggesting no reason to tighten. A review of the Fed transcripts from 1997 through 2000 revealed a major shift from prioritizing a stable dollar to becoming captive to academic fears that further wage gains might cause inflation. Again, another thing that Vivek just brought up that I consistently bring up all the time. I'm sick and tired of hearing that, the only way we're going to fix inflation is to put people on an unemployment line. Again, think about that for a second. We need to destroy the economy in order to fix it. We need to put people out of work. We need to put people on government assistance and food stamps in order to fix inflation. It's horse manure. It really is. But again, they keep saying it again and again and again. And, eventually, I guess the lie has become the truth and people actually believe this nonsense. Anyway, in the aftermath of this self-inflicted recession, the Fed overreacted by pushing the federal funds rate to then a record low of 1%, holding it there even though the economy was rebounding. The dollar's real value fell below the well-established 20-year range that the previous Fed regime had worked so hard to achieve, which should have told the Fed that emergency liquidity was no longer needed. By ignoring this major inflationary signal, the Fed planted the seeds for the next crisis, which arrived in 2008. From 2000 to 2007, the Case-Shiller National Home Price Index rose 73%, reflecting a boom in real estate. But in real dollar terms, in terms of commodities, housing prices were up only 1.7%. The weak dollar transmitted false price signals that resulted in the misallocation of capital. Always does. Always does. A benefit of stable dollar is that it maintains the balance between debtors and creditors. Sudden change in that balance is the essence of a financial crisis. 2008, trailing inflation caused by the dollar's multi-year weakness met new deflationary forces as the dollar soared 36% in 3 months. This shifted the balance abruptly, culminating in the destruction of Lehman Brothers and other major investment banks. Quantitative easing was announced the next month, basically providing liquidity, but its only chance of working depended on following the approach that was used by Mr. Johnson in 1987. Instead, the Fed rolled out 4 rounds of quantitative easing, all of which would have been unnecessary had the Fed not ventured away from dollar stability. Again, what did this all lead to? Led to asset bubbles that we've had over the past few years. The signs were right there. They were right there. In February 2021, consumer price index still below, but approaching the Fed's 2% target. The dollar's real value returned to its three-year stretch of pre-COVID relative calm. This was a sign to stop, even reverse asset purchases, normalize sales, stabilize the dollar. Instead, the Fed bought an additional $2 trillion of assets, which provided fuel for speculative securities and allowed CPI to race to a peak of 9.1%. The Fed waited for labor market indicators, including wage growth, then tightened into an already slowing economy, extending a familiar pattern. Again, we all know everybody's going to be hanging on every word. What's coming out of the Fed? What are they saying? Again, it's not because they know what they're talking about. It's basically, I listen in to see what they're going to break. What are you going to shake up? What do you guys have in mind in regards to destabilizing our economy? Vivek points out as well, and this is fascinating. During the only stable dollar eras of the last century, annual GDP growth has averaged 4.9% during 1922 to 1929, 4% in 1948 to 1971, 3.7%. This is GDP growth. 3.7% 1983 to 2000. The volatile dollar from 2000 to 2022 saw average growth of a paltry 1.9%. Had the dollar remained stable since 2000, with an enduring 3.7% growth, the economy would have nearly been 50% greater than it is today, and we would have avoided multiple crises. Think about that for a second. Our economy would be 50% greater than it is today. I hope the Fed shows up and says, we're out, we're done, we're not doing anything. You don't need us anymore. You don't need us anymore. Let rates do what rates are going to do. Anyway, Watchdog on WallStreet.com. Watchdog on WallStreet.com. Have a good one.